Hello everyone and welcome back to the Crypt. I'm Cato
I'm Gus.
and we are here now to do our very first official battle report, which is a Warhammer Fantasy battle report. We're using 8th edition for this, and we are doing it based on a campaign called The Winter's Grudge.
The Winter's Grudge is basically me and Cato's Warhammer lifelong feud between the Dwarfs and the Beasts. We're going to be doing it as an escalation campaign, so our first kick-off point is 800 points. I play Dwarfs, Cato plays Beasts.
The superior race.
Yeah, we'll see. There are some other armies joining in.
Yeah. Vampire counts. We have a Vampire Counts army. We have several Empire armies kicking about in the Grey Mountains, which is where this is based. We also have an Ogre army, which are full of treachery. And I believe we've got a Chaos army coming down from the north now, but there will be several other armies cropping in, including Skaven. So first off, we've got the Beastmen army, again 800 points. What I've gone for here is mainly core. So for me, fantasy is all about the core troops. So to start off with, in my core choices, I have 2 units of 10 Warhounds. I have 2 units of 30 Gores, both full commands, one with hand weapon shields, one with additional hand weapons. For my special choice, I have a Chaos Spawn, and leading my army is a Wargore with an additional hand weapon whose name is Thultrick. He's basically here as a scouting force. He's here to sniff out the Dwarfs, to start testing the boundaries of the Grey Mountains, and this is essentially his army to start off with. As I said, it'll progress, it'll escalate, and there'll be bigger, better things coming in at a later date.
Okay, so this is my dwarf army. It is led by a Thane called Kadar Maccabee. He is equipped with a hammer with the Master Rune of Flight, which basically means he can throw his hammer and it comes back to him, so he gets a shooting attack. There's 20 crossbowmen, just standard with shields, and then I also have 25 warriors with hand weapon shields, a grudge thrower that's just bear, and also a bolt thrower which is also just bear, no runes on it.
So basically you've gone for a very core heavy army as well.
Yeah, I mean you don't get a lot of dwarfs for 800 points, so you have to kind of see what you can get for it.
Yeah. So here we have deployment on the battlefield, which Gus actually got to get his first unit deployed, so tell us a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, strategically I think I probably should have set up on the hill on the right hand side of the board, but thematically I wanted the Dwarfs to be holding the mountain pass through these gates here. So I put my unit of warriors smack bang in the middle of the gates to try and protect their flanks. Then I put the bolt thrower in between them and the crossbowmen to hold the bolt thrower's flank with the crossbowmen. But this ultimately left the rock lobber a little bit exposed, but there wasn't very many other options for it unless I put it all the way across the other side of the board, which I didn't really want to do because dwarfs are better huddled together, as we all know.
True. For myself, the sort of key thing for me was to get in as fast as possible to the dwarfs. So what I was trying to do was I positioned a unit of warhounds on the far left, which I was hoping to sort of bring round the far left of the old ruined building. The unit on the left-hand side of the sort of church, I wanted to vanguard and try and get in the face of the crossbowmen to absorb fire more than anything. Dum Dum, the Chaos Spawn, was on the right-hand side of the church. His basic job was just to get forward, try and get in contact with the dwarfs, try and just stop them because he's unbreakable. If I can get in combat, hopefully he can survive. He's a great guy. The 2 units of Gores, I pushed both on the right flank. I seen Gus had put his warriors down, and knowing the sort of resilience of a dwarf, and especially a large dwarf unit, I wanted to get in and try and overpower them. So I thought having two units reasonably close together, I'd be able to try and take and overrun that dwarf unit. So my plan was, again, try and get as close as I could to the prey, try and get in, and also use the cover of all the buildings that were there to keep me covered from the bolt thrower and the rock lobber, and obviously the 20 strong crossbowman unit that it has. So once we were deployed, we were happy, reasonably, and we went on to turn one. Just before turn one started, though, before we rolled the dice, I actually vanguarded both units of warhounds.
So I won the roll on first turn, and in typical dwarf fashion, I moved very little. So my unit of warriors wheeled slightly to get a better angle on the unit of Gors coming up the right hand side, and then we moved on to shooting. My crossbowmen shot at what I thought was the most immediate threat, which was the dogs coming up the centre of the board. I killed 3 of them. They passed their break test
Because they are mighty.
on a 5. And then I moved on to my artillery pieces. The bolt thrower shot at the Gors on the right hand side and missed. My rock lobber shot at the same unit and unfortunately misfired, but only couldn't fire this turn.
Yeah, so I got off lightly with the dwarfs misfiring and missing with the bolt thrower. I did take damage from the crossbowmen, which dented the unit of warhounds, but I decided to press on with the original plan I had, which was to try and get in as quick as possible. So the warhounds, after vanguarding on the far left, actually wrapped around the old ruined building. The unit on the left-hand side of the church actually advanced after passing the leadership like champions and moved straight forward towards the dwarf crossbowmen. Again, I was trying to get in their face, trying to absorb some of the arrows, give him the target. Num Num, the chaos spawn, moved forward 8 inch. He was again moving straight forward towards the crossbowmen, trying to present himself as a bit of a target. The 2 Gore units I've got, left and right of the ruined buildings there, they both just moved up at full pace, and they wanted to try and get in a better position to see if I could, hopefully in time, to try and get a charge. The distance was still vast, but it's worth always trying to get there, try and get in and stop the artillery fire coming in. So that was turn one for us basically.
So my turn 2 consisted of 0 movement in traditional dwarf fashion, and I moved straight on to shooting. So my crossbows took another shot at the dogs again, the unit directly in front of them, which they killed 4 this time, and the dogs failed their leadership test and ran 10 inches. The bolt thrower then took a shot at the Gors with the hand weapon and shields, killing 3, and then the stone thrower, same unit, killed 2 with a direct hit.
Yeah. I took a bit of a hit there on the Gors. I lost 5. With my turn 2, I declared a charge on the very left flank there with the warhounds into the stone thrower, which they did well on. They got in, and I think it was like a 10-inch charge or something like that, but they got in. The warhounds in the centre there, they kept fleeing. They actually failed the rally check and they fled. Num Num, well, these ones were cowards. The other ones were mighty, for now. The Num Num the spawn, he actually shot forward 11 inches. He actually gained a bit of ground, parking himself almost in front of the crossbowman. And the 2 units of Gors managed to manoeuvre in a better position. They were ready to tackle the large dwarf warrior unit. When it came down to the combat phase, because I had 0 shooting, the warhounds, like absolute champions, did 2 wounds to the rock lobber, which it then failed its break test and died automatically. The Warhounds then overran straight into the flank of the 20-strong crossbowman unit, which essentially shut off a round of shooting, which helped me no end because it meant that I wasn't getting 20 crossbow bolts to number.
So in my turn 3 again, I did not move. The shooting phase, my bolt thrower killed 1 gore. The crossbowmen obviously couldn't shoot because they were in combat with the dogs. The combat with the dogs, there were no wounds in combat, but the Warhounds won the combat, and I passed my test and then combat reformed to rank up facing them, so they're off the flank.
So, I won the combat with the Dwarfs, and they'd reformed to face me, which meant that they actually then had the flank facing my main army. So I had a choice of charges to make here. My first charge, I was actually debating for a while to do a crossover between the 2 Gore units to try and put my heavier Gore unit into the Dwarf Warriors. But after the Dwarfs smartly reformed into the Warhounds, it had expanded the distance. So then I was forced to put the additional hand weapon Gores straight into the bolt thrower, which I rolled a 12-inch charge for, which was amazing. The Gores on the right at that point then decided to go into the Dwarf Warriors and try and sort them out. And Num Num actually piled into the flank of the crossbowmen, which were now facing the Warhounds. When it came down to the combat, the Gores had actually put a pile of wounds through, but between armour saves and parry saves, I didn't actually get anything back. To which then Maccabee stepped forward and killed 2 Gores, and then the Dwarf Warriors also killed 2, winning the combat and forcing the Gores to flee. Lucky enough, I got away with a 9-inch flee, and the Dwarfs only chased 6.
They tried.
Yeah, they did try. They've got short legs. With the main Gore unit with the additional hand weapons also containing Thiltrek, he'd actually done 1 wound to the bolt thrower, which essentially won me the combat. They did no wounds in return, and they failed their break test, which meant they had automatically died pretty much on the spot. My Gores then reformed to face the now warrior unit that was sitting behind them, so they'd faced and hopefully get a rear charge in a later turn. The Warhounds and Num Num didn't fare so good. The Warhounds did 0 wounds, and the Num Num actually killed 1 though. But the Warriors did 4 wounds to the Warhounds, and they actually won by 4. Then the Warhounds fled off the table, but Num Num held, being unbreakable, so he wasn't going anywhere. So the Dwarfs then smartly reformed to face the threat of Num Num, again putting more models into combat with him, rather than them sitting with the flank on them.
So turn 4 saw the demise of the Gore unit. The Dwarf Warriors declared a charge, charged them down, wiped them all out, which was lovely. I did enjoy it.
Unlucky dice.
Yeah. Then the combat with the crossbowmen and Num Num, there were no wounds dealt by the Dwarfs, and no wounds in combat with Num Num, but he got his stomp at the end, killing 1 Dwarf. And then that was it for me. It was on to Kato after that.
Yeah, Num Num managed to, well, obviously he's unbreakable, so he managed to stay, but he did do a wound, which is, that's a victory in itself there. We'll keep that. For my turn, the Gores, the main Gore unit there with additional hand weapons with Thiltrek in there. I charged straight into the front of the Dwarf Warriors, which after they'd cut down the Gores, they'd reformed to face me. So I ploughed straight into the front. Once I got there, Thultrek had called it a challenge to Maccabee, which, he accepted. He wasn't as cowardly as I thought. And they fought the duel, to which Thultrek took a win. I didn't deal any. I don't know what happened. I think Gus maybe tampered with my dice a little bit. Not unsure. In the combat with the back there, so I should say that the Gauls actually drew the combat due to charging in, etc. Even though a win was caused on me, no one else actually dealt any wins. Num Num still fighting the dwarf crossbowman. Killed one dwarf, and the dwarfs did one win to Num Num. But again, I lost the combat, but because he's unbreakable, he wasn't going anywhere.
So yeah, turn 5 was a good one for me. It saw the challenge continue, where Kader Maccabee stuck 2 wounds on Thultrek and smashed his head into the ground with his hammer. And saw him off the board.
Thultrek actually tripped in the snow, frosty conditions. Not good for hoofs.
Not good for hoofs.
Not good for hoofs.
Yeah. The combat between the unit itself, there was a lot of wounds dealt, but not from the dwarfs, but the beasts put a lot of wounds on the dwarfs. But dwarf armor ruled the day, and all saves were made. The beasts lost the combat by 1, which they then fled and were run down like the filthy goats they are. The combat...
Such cruelty to animals. Such cruelty.
The combat between Num Num and the crossbowman was a non-event. No wounds were dealt, and the stalemate continued.
Yeah, so...
On the Kato.
my turn 5 was pretty much uneventful, because all I had left was Num Num, who dealt a wound and received a wound. I would like to say that I was able to perform more during the course of this battle, but now my army was pretty much stomped into the dirt over 1 unit of dwarfs, completely devouring everything they touched. And I'm pretty sure that Gus has fixed dice. Unsure, need to weigh them. But we'll move on to turn 6 just to find out what happened.
So in turn 6, after the dwarfs' triumphant slaughtering of the beasts, they'd turned to face Num Num, and being so exhausted by the slaughter, failed to make their charge. So then the combat continued with the crossbowman and Num Num, which resulted in the crossbowman getting the final wound and putting Num Num to bed.
That had nothing to do with you having short legs and carrying too much armor.
Well...
Right, well, yep, so Num Num died, and, it was a tabling. It's the long story short. As all Beastmen died, the dwarfs had succeeded in defending the village against the Beastmen threat, which was really good for Gus and really sucky for me. However, I will be back, and I will be here to do some more van damage when the time comes. In the next game, I'll have bigger, better, probably more warhounds in the next game, because they are immense in their own way. Thanks very much for giving me the game, Gus.
Typical dwarf fashion, we will be waiting.
Yes, they will be waiting. So the next game, we're going to escalate up to 1,000 points. We'll have some new additions to the army. Again, I've got some more warhounds coming in. I'm unsure what Gus has got, but... it'll probably be something really hardy, resilient, and doesn't move very fast. So thank you for being patient, for those of you that are subscribed to us, for waiting for us for over a year to actually bring out a battle report, which we now do have, and we have more in the bank, getting edited as we speak. I'd like, obviously, thank you very much for all you that are watching. I'd like to thank Daryl as well, for being very patient with me, because I am completely rubbish at using anything to do with computers. This takes me a lot of time and effort, where other people are complete whizzes at it. And long story short is I suck at using computers. For the battlefield itself, all terrain on this battlefield was actually made by Gus. If you want to look him up on Instagram, you'll find him on Farg's Forge. Great terrain maker, great painter, really rubbish dwarf. The villain of fantasy. I would just like to say that I hate all Gus's dwarves and I will completely destroy them. But thank you very much for watching, and we will
Cheers, guys.
see you again soon. Cheers.